Now, what you'll get served with is probably a complaint or a petition. And, we don't really have to talk about right now the difference between a complaint and a petition. Ultimately, it's a sheet of paper that says, hey, you messed up or you've made me mad and I want something back, or, you need to give me this. And it sets out the complaint that, the reason why the other side is griping at you. And you're also going to get served with something called a summons. Now, a summons is a fancy sheet of paper with the clerk's stamp on it that tells you how many days you have to file an answer. Now, if you're in another state, you're not in the state of Arkansas, the time frames for filing an answer are much different. So it's on that summons where it'll give you notice of how many days you have to file an answer. So you always want to read it. And you really want to read on that sheet of paper anything that is in bold and black. And what's going to be in bold and black is your name as the defendant. And what's going to be in bold and black is how many days you have to file an answer. Now, what happens if you don't file an answer in that time frame? Well, you may have acted to default. And if you default, what does that mean? Well, that means the other side might and will probably get every single thing they're asking for. So you really need to get an answer in. So Fuller, sometimes I can be a nervous Nelly, you say, and I feel like I have to get an answer in tomorrow. No, so that's not necessarily the case. You do need to call an attorney if you're going to hire one ASAP so that you can get in and talk about the consequences of what the document is that you've been served with. And then you can decide how you want to handle it moving forward. Now, this is not one of those things where you just set it on the kitchen table and magically one night elves come in and fix it all. That will not happen. It will be sitting there and it will only become more of a problem. So if that document sits there for 100 days and you don't do anything, and then you eventually hire an attorney, I will guarantee you this: you will be paying that attorney a lot more money to fix the problem that you have let sit on the kitchen table than if you had just scheduled an appointment right after you had been served. Now, right after you've been served, you call an attorney, you schedule an appointment, you go in, and you know that you've got a good 30-day window. So you don't have to have an appointment the next day. So here's the big unless there's some sort of order that the court has already signed in the paperwork. Sometimes the court can give emergency relief before you've been served or injunctive relief, and that's to prevent you from doing something. So let's just say you're getting ready to knock down an old building that you believe is on your property, but your neighbor believes it's on their property. They might rush in and get an emergency order from the judge when the judge telling you, do not knock that building down. If that's the case, you do need to get into your attorney ASAP to figure out what it is you need to do and what it is you don't need to do, especially if you're renting heavy equipment and you can't knock down the building. That's money out of your pocket. So I say all that to say this: if somebody sues you or a process server shows up and says, hey, here's some fancy paperwork, you need to call an attorney ASAP just to figure out what that stuff is. The same is true if you sign for certified mail. So if you sign one of those green sheets and it's Tuesday, you need to assume you got served on Tuesday. And it doesn't matter if you're signing for your wife or you're signing for your husband. They can sign for you. Really, anybody in your house can accept service, or anybody in your house can sign for you. So don't sit there and say, hey, I had my neighbors over and they got the paperwork. That doesn't work. So anytime you get paperwork at all from a process server, you sign for a green sheet, and when you read it, your jaw slacks a little bit, you really need to call an attorney and get in and schedule an appointment so that you're at least taken care of, or that attorney can give you some real advice from which you can rely on. And if you need help with that, guess what? I would love to be the attorney to give you the advice upon which you can rely. Fuller Bumpers, downtown Batesville. We'd love to schedule an appointment, bring you in, and as always, get you headed in a better direction.